Morning, church. How's it going today? That's awesome. Really glad to hear that. So, I'm super excited to share with you today, and I just want to open with a simple question. Are you afraid of the dark? Or have you ever been? See, immediately when we hear this word, you probably immediately go to your childhood. Because I bet you probably like 98% of people here were once afraid of the dark. If you are, if you say no, I don't believe you. But the funny thing is that being afraid of the dark is among the top 5 fears among most people, with only spiders, death, and public speaking beating it out. Snakes was behind it somehow. I don't know why, but it was. See, but the thing is that fears have this really powerful thing over us. When you're afraid, it causes you to shake in your boots, to quiver, almost feeling paralyzed. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. I'm a storyteller, so you'll have to get used to it. I'm going to tell a lot today. It's the story of how I became afraid of the dark. It started about when I was 6 years old, and my mom asked me, "Can you go grab something from the basement?" That's how all terrible stories start. See, but my basement was something special. See, I think when the people who created my house created the basement, they said, how can we create the creepiest basement in the world? See, my house is over 100 years old, the house that I grew up in. Really old. And you'd open the basement, and you could see maybe 4, maybe 5 feet in front of you, and then it was just darkness. And you could even turn the light on the right side of the wall, and the lights downstairs would flicker for 3 seconds and then turn out. So somehow turning the lights on became more terrifying than leaving them off. See, most kids at 6 years old, if they looked down those stairs, they would have said, I don't want to do it. See, but I'll tell you guys a secret. I'm a mother's boy. I really loved my mom. I still do. She's an amazing woman. But, so, even though I really didn't want to go, I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove my mom that I'm strong. And my siblings still bug me to this day. They call me the golden child and that I'm mother's favorite. And it is true. So anyway, I decided to take the terrible journey down the stairs. And the first step was the worst, because you take that first step and you hear the loudest creak you've ever heard. Because the wood wasn't really safe. It kind of warped every time you stepped on it. So as a 6-year-old, I'm like, maybe if I just run, if one breaks, I'll be on the next step and I'll be fine. So I just bolted down those stairs as fast as I could. Almost fell. It was great. But I made it down. I was like, yes, I made it down. And my hope was that the thing my mom wanted to grab was right in front of me. But of course, it was the farthest corner from me. I'm like, oh, okay. So I head towards down there. And a little backstory about why I was so afraid of this basement. 1, it was a basement. 2, my older brother was a jerk. See, my older brother, he loved telling us all these stories that there's monsters down there, they're going to grab your leg and eat you, and all these terrible things. So I was just terrified of this monster that was going to come. And I almost get to the far right corner. I hear this loud scream, thinking, and at that point I just become paralyzed. Because at that point I think, oh, there's a monster. It probably grabbed someone. What am I going to do? Truthfully, it was just the water boiler. It was kind of temperamental. But in that moment, I was so afraid and so terrified, I actually started crying, and I just sat down. I just stopped what I was doing, and I probably sat there for a good 12 minutes before my mom finally came downstairs. And that was pretty brave of my mom, because my mom also hated the basement because she was terrified of mice. She thought they lived down there. And so she eventually came down there and said, what's the matter? And of course I told her I'm afraid. And just a little tidbit, I'm still afraid of that basement. When I go home, I'm like, no, I'm not going down there. But my mom told me something, and she said, Spencer, you have the power to overcome anything down here. And that kind of gets to our topic today, which is claiming victory. Yeah, it's up there. Yeah, claiming victory, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Before I get into the meat of the passage, the meat of our talk today, I'm going to tell you another story. Yeah, back to back. So I'm going to tell you guys my favorite Bible story, David and Goliath. Now, I know it's kind of cliche to say that my favorite Bible story is David and Goliath, But it is. It's a great story of like the underdog coming on top. So today we're going to focus on the three characters of the story. Yes, there's three characters, not just two. So the first character that comes into the story is Goliath. This mammoth, this beast, this monster. Just imagine. They say Goliath, and biblical scholars think that Goliath was somewhere between 9 and 12 feet tall. That means he's almost double my size. I like to think that I'm a big dude, but I ain't that big. See, when Goliath probably, I imagine him, walking over a hill for some reason, just, in a really cinematic glory, just, this evil guy coming over the hill, and just, I can just imagine the Israelites, our second character, just all of a sudden being like, oh, crap. Just, terrifying, because Goliath was the embodiment of fear for the Israelites. They looked at him, and he was something unnatural, unhuman, something that there's no way that they could ever overcome. Because he was terrifying in every way of the word. And the Israelites, as soon as they saw Goliath, they already believed in their failure. As soon as they saw him, the Israelites already gave up. And you see, when I read the story as a kid, I said, well, why didn't they just send their best soldier to fight him? If they lose, whatever. They lose a war, not the big deal. That wasn't the case, though. Because in that culture, if they would have sent their best soldier and Goliath defeated him, that would have meant that Goliath and his army would have invaded Israel, killed every man, and if they were feeling nice that day, every woman and child would be brought into slavery. See, Israel was terrified of the eradication of their people. See, what Israel was hoping for, that they're hoping, let's not fight him today. Because if we don't fight him today, maybe he won't invade. Maybe he won't get impatient. This was the Israelites' thought. This was their process. This is how they felt. They were so afraid that they just wouldn't send anyone out and hoping that they just wouldn't invade. Because they already believed in their failure. But little did they know that victory was already claimed. And this is when David comes in. Oh, man, my favorite character. Yeah, this little guy. Probably really little. I imagine him super scrawny. But him just coming in. And David came at the right moment. Because just as David comes to give his brother some food, Goliath comes. And Goliath starts his daily mocking of the Israelite people and their God. See, and David, being this really confident, scrawny little kid, goes, who does this guy think he is? What does he think he is? And his brothers were probably like, a giant. That's who he thinks he is. He's a giant. But see, David, unlike Israel, David believed that victory was the only outcome. See, David went and David already claimed his victory. David already claimed the victory of the Israeli people because he knew who God he served. And I can just imagine David going well, if you won't take him, I will. And I can just imagine his brothers being like, whoa, man. You're our little brother. We can't let you do that. And David's probably like, you can't stop me. And they're like, okay, how about you just go talk to the king? Maybe he can talk you out of it. The king couldn't talk David out of it either. So he said, why don't you take my armor? David didn't even do that. David was so confident in God's victory that day, he went out in civilian clothes and a child's toy. And won. That's how incredible David's victory was. He was so confident in his victory over Goliath that he knew there was no way that he could lose. That there was no possible outcome that would cause him to lose. And his victory had already been won because he believed that God had set him apart for victory. And there's a passage in the Bible that kind of talks about this. 1 Peter 2, 9 through 10, which says, but you are God's chosen treasure, presents, priests who are his kings, a spiritual nation set apart as God's devoted ones. He called you out of darkness to experience his marvelous light, and how he claims you as his very own. He did this so that you would broadcast a glorious light, his glorious wonders throughout the world. For at one time you were not God's people, but now you are. Maybe you guys are here today and you're listening to that passage. Maybe you're hearing everything, but you're not connecting with it. Maybe you're hearing it like, I don't feel like a royal priest. Maybe that part just glosses over you. But what you do hear is that you were once not God's people. Maybe you're here today and you're saying, I don't feel like one of his children. Maybe you're here today because you feel lost, overwhelmed, overcome. Maybe you're here today because your situations is so much. Maybe you came today as a last resort. I don't claim to want to know your circumstance, because I don't. But I know what it's like to feel set up for failure. Maybe that's where you are today. Last time I was up here on stage, I told you guys about, my battle with depression and stuff. And I wish that I could stand here today and say that was the only battle I ever faced. But it's not. See, even this past couple of years, all my close friends know this, of the struggle that I've been having. Because I've had this circumstance in my life that's been so overwhelming and so overcoming that I have felt lost at times. You see, 2.5 years ago, my father was diagnosed with cancer. And that was really hard. And it's been this long battle. And at times I felt lost, broken, despaired, not knowing what to do. Feeling like the darkness is overwhelming me and overcoming me. Feeling as though there's nothing I can do. Feeling as though there's nothing I can do but feel trembling, to shake in my boots, to feel paralyzed. To let the darkness overcome me. Maybe you're in a similar situation. Maybe you feel as though you're shrouded in darkness. Maybe today you feel hurting, broken, and you're about to give up. Maybe today you're about to fall and just give up trying. Stop. You're going to stop pressing on. Because that feeling of paralysis hits you. That feeling of not knowing what to do, of giving up, of just letting sit. Maybe that's where you're at. But I have good news. You who spend your days shrouded in darkness can now say, we have seen a brilliant light. Those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. Woo! The light's dawned. But maybe today you're still standing. Maybe you're still feeling alone, despaired, broken, and not knowing what to do. Because maybe you're still, even though the light's dawned, you're not acting like it. See, I've been there. See, in my times with praying to God and getting to know him, I've started doing this thing where I write down my conversations with God. I write down what I say, I write down what he says. So I can turn back to them. It's really helpful. So, another little short story. A couple of years ago, I was going through some stuff where I was feeling like a terrible person because of things that I have done in my past that I regretted, of things that have caused me shame and all these things. And I was feeling totally broken, despaired, and hurting, and like a failure. Like a failure to everyone around me. And I tell you, if I was still that way, there's no way I'd be up on this stage. Because I no longer feel like a failure. So I'm going to read you guys a little bit of that conversation. My son, my boy, I believe you often forget how much joy you bring to me. You focus on your faults and failures. You forget that those have been forgiven. I don't look down at you with disappointment, disgust, shame, or regret, but with pride. See, here's the thing is that even those moments where you feel like you're set up for failure, God's still going to intervene. I remember when I went to camp when I was a kid. I used to go to camp all the time because camp's amazing. And every year we did this like camp-wide pillow fight. And I got really excited this year because I got this pillow that I called the Hammer. It was this beast of a pillow. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to smoke everybody. But I go up in there, and for some reason I wasn't a popular kid this summer. I had about 7 kids team up on me. See, but those 7 kids were also cheaters because they put rocks in their pillows. Yeah, I know, terrible, right? See, but lucky for me, I had this camp counselor who really liked me, and he came and he just like beat the crap out of all of them. It was great. But see, like even though I was set up for failure, I had someone who intervened on my behalf. Because like they were like wailing on me. I was like on the ground crouching over, and they were just like beating on me. And then he came in like a hero in a story. It was amazing. Because the thing is, like, even though when we feel lost, despaired, broken, overwhelmed and overcome by the darkness, even though the light has dawned, when we feel like it hasn't, God intervenes. Romans 8:26-28 says this. Meanwhile, the moment we get tired in the waiting, God's Spirit is right alongside, helping us along. If we don't know how or what to pray, it doesn't matter. He does our praying in and for us, making a prayer out of wordless sighs and our aching groans. He keeps us present before God. That's why we can be so sure that in every detail in our lives, the love of God is worked into something good. See, today, we're talking about claiming victory. That's the topic today. Claiming victory. When it comes to victory, we gotta know that victory involves a battle. We gotta understand that we're on a battlefield. And also that in victory, in the battlefield, there's an enemy. I'm gonna talk about him today, because I'm tired of not talking about him. You see, there's some things that the enemy wants. The enemy wants us to remain broken. The enemy wants us to remain overcome and overwhelmed by our circumstances and our situations. The enemy wants you to remain dormant, to not doing anything. The enemy wants you to be shaking your boots and trembling. I know what that's like. I feel that all the time. When I was first told, my dad called me and told me that he was diagnosed, that's what I felt. I felt overcome, overwhelmed, broken, and despaired, not knowing what to do. Like victory was so far off and so far away. Like there was no way that victory could ever be had. I know what that's like. But you know, there's something else that the enemy wants us to forget. There's someone that the enemy wants us to forget. The enemy wants to forget someone really important. The enemy wants you to forget Christ. See, what the enemy wants most of all is he wants you to forget that Jesus came and he fought. And that he won. See, the enemy wants you to forget that every step that Jesus took on this earth was a victory for the kingdom. The enemy wants you to forget that in battle there's blood. And that blood should have been you and me. But no, Jesus said, no, I'll bleed for you. The enemy wants you to forget that on the day of his death, Jesus Christ was stamped in the ground as a victory flag on a cross. The enemy wants you to forget that in that day we had victory, but even more so, our victory was sealed in his return. That Jesus Christ didn't stay dead. He came back, and his victory was sealed. In 1 Corinthians 15, 55 through 57, it says this. So death, tell me, where is your victory? Tell me, death, where is your sting? It is sin that gives death its sting and the law that gives sin its power. But we thank God for giving us the victory as conquerors through our Lord Jesus, the Anointed One. So you may feel lost, despaired, broken, not knowing what to do. Feeling like victory is so far away and so far off. But God's telling a different story. God is saying that you have victory. I have given you victory. I'm going to tell you guys one more story. This is one year when I was working at camp, the same camp that I got beat up as a kid. I ended up working there for a long time. And there was one summer when the enemy was attacking us hard, where all the counselors were exhausted, feeling broken, despaired, not knowing what to do. Especially me. I was feeling like, I don't know what to do, God. I'm feeling lost. I was ashamed of my situations. My sin in my life was pounding on me. So I got up one morning to do my morning devotions really early. Because I wanted to, hoping that God would give me something to fix the situation, something to bring me out of my darkness, out of my sin, to make me feel protected, to help me feel like the enemy wasn't attacking us constantly. So I got up in the morning and I was walking along the beach, and I saw something really creepy. Well, not creepy, but it scared the crap out of me at the time, but it's actually really incredible. See, what I actually saw, I saw an angel, and he was patrolling the camp, walking along it. It was really cool. See, and that's the thing that's when God showed me something. He says, even when you feel weak, even when you feel despaired, even when you feel broken, even when you feel giving up, I will send help. See, today, God's angels are patrolling this church. See, today, God's angels are patrolling your life. When you feel broken and despaired and hurting, God will bring you out of your darkness into his marvelous light. See, a little while ago, we were in darkness. And then the light shined, and the darkness fled. See, when Christ's light shines, the darkness can't overcome it. It can try, it will fail. Because that's how powerful Christ's light is. Because today, this entire time when God laid this message on my heart, I felt as though the enemy really didn't want this message to be taught today. I felt it. But the cool thing about it was, I basically told them, too bad. Because today, Christ is doing something. Today, Jesus is doing something. He's saying, I'm taking back what's mine. God's taking back his people and claiming victory. And he's going to give you things back that you thought you lost. Isaiah 61 through 5 says this. Arise, Jerusalem. You could change that if you want to Arise, Gateway. Let your light shine for all to see. For the glory of the Lord rises to shine on you. Darkness as black as night covers all the nations of the earth. But the glory of the Lord rises to appear over you. All nations will come to see your see your light. Mighty kings will come to see your radiance. Look and see, for everyone is coming home. Your sons are coming from distant lands. Your daughters will be carried home. Your eyes will shine and your hearts will thrill with joy. So here's the thing, guys, today. If you're feeling broken, despaired, like you can't overcome your situation or your circumstance, God's going to change that. If you're feeling you can't get up, like the darkness has overcome you and overwhelmed you, and you just want to stop, like you want to fall down, God's going to reach his hand out and pick you up. So you see, today, Christ is going to do something special. Today, Christ is going to stamp his victory flag in your life. Do you guys believe that? Do you guys believe that the enemy has no right over you anymore? Do you believe that Christ came and declared his victory over your life? Do you believe that we have overcome the darkness? Do you believe that the light has dawned? Then stand. If you believe that you have victory today, stand. And we are going to declare his victory. So you guys are going to repeat after me. We are victors through Christ. The enemy will not surround me, but will fall at my feet. God will send his angels to protect me. And from this day and forevermore, I will be a victor. I will let God's light shine far and wide, so that the world would know that I am a victor through Christ, and that we have victory. Let's worship him who gives us victory.